So to see where this language came from, I'm going to take you on a little journey and retrace the path of Nicaraguan Sign Language up to the present day. When these children arrived at school 5 years ago, there were already about 1,200 deaf native users of Nicaraguan Sign Language. And there were hundreds of kids older than them using this language around them in their school. And these children learned it from interacting with them. Now, if we want to know what those hundreds of kids who were older than that current day generation of children, what they looked like, we can look at the kids who were teenagers at the time when they entered. So this first group here entered the school in the mid-1990s. And at that time, there were about 800 signers of Nicaraguan Sign Language, and 200 of them were at the school at any time. And you can see that it's fast, it's fluent. They can talk about the non-here and now. This is a natural human language that's used for what human languages are used for. And if we want to know where they got their language from, we can retrace the steps of the language further back when these kids were 4 and 5 years old, and ask, who were the teenagers then when they arrived at the school? And so we can look at the people who were, 10 years older than them. When these guys, these are the cohort that arrived in the 1980s. So when they arrived, there were about 400 signers of Nicaraguan Sign Language, again, 200 at the school. And you may be able, if you have an eye for it, you may be able to see how, as we're going further and further back, the language is a little bit more deliberate. The feedback is a little more explicit, and the signs are bigger and more symmetrical. There are more two-handed signs. There are lots of differences like that, and a lot of the work I do is to try and quantify what those differences are. But if you wanted to know, who they got their language from, sort of to continue this retracing of the steps, when they arrived at the school, the older people were these people, who are 45 to 50 years old today. And when these people were 4 and 5 years old in the 1970s, and they first came to the school, there were no signers of Nicaraguan Sign Language. And this is where we reach sort of the end of our retracing. Nobody taught these people to sign. The teachers at the school used Spanish, which they couldn't hear. And so this is really where NSL begins with this cohort of 50 pioneers. They took the gestures and actions that they observed as their raw materials and wove them into a new language.